Adaptations of Frankenstein by Jenna Demmons. Unfortunately, when you think of Frankenstein, this little guy might be the first thing you think of. While popular, this is not the Frankenstein that appears in Mary Shelley's book. In order to understand the adaptations, we need to go back to the book. The book was published anonymously in 1818, and while there is much debate about the major theme, it is undeniable that some of the themes are the danger of knowledge, nature, justice, revenge, ambition, and responsibility, but there are so many more. We will be looking over 5 different adaptations of Frankenstein, starting with The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957, to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1994, to Frankenstein the Musical from 2002, to Frankenstein from 2015, and lastly to Victor Frankenstein from 2015. Let's start with The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957. This is one of the oldest Frankenstein movies. Like the novel, it takes place in 19th century Switzerland, but it only takes place in the house in Geneva. Like the novel, it is a frame story. Frankenstein is telling the story to a priest before he goes to be hung for his crimes, although it is not a priest in the novel. Frankenstein is not a likable character and seems to want nothing to do with his family, especially Elizabeth. He is also having an affair with Justine, which shocks the audience who expected the traditional Frankenstein story. Paul Krimp plays a significant role in this movie as he is the companion to Frankenstein, while in the novel, he is a professor that plays a very minor role. Frankenstein actually commits murder in this film when he is looking for the perfect brain for the creature. He also allows the creature to kill Justine as he locks the door to keep her from escaping. The creature itself is a killer from the very beginning he was given life. He does not talk and seems to have no intelligence. This is very far from the eloquent and intellectual creature that readers of the novel have seen. Even after killing 2 people, Frankenstein wants to keep his creature. He has no regret in what he has done or the lives that were lost. Oddly enough, Elizabeth lives, and the movie ends with Frankenstein being hanged for the murder of Justine. The themes that can be observed in this were valuing work over relationships and the danger of taking the role of God. Next, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1994. This adaptation has been credited with being the closest to the novel. It even includes Captain Walton, which no other adaptation in this presentation includes. However, the captain is a lot more stubborn and unkind in the film. Frankenstein in the film is very close to the Frankenstein in the novel. He's a family man and values his family. He has a likable character and personality, and he's actually in love with Elizabeth. This Frankenstein actually has good intentions behind creating the creature, but he never thinks about the consequences of doing so. I do not necessarily think that this aspect is the same as the novel because Frankenstein the novel seems to have more selfish intentions. In the film, he's distraught from the death around him and he wants to stop it. I believe this is why the film added the cholera epidemic. The creature in the film is close to what the reader would imagine him being like. He's also eloquent and intelligent, which is similar to how the book describes him. The biggest difference is in the end of the film. Elizabeth is killed and Frankenstein brings her back to life using Justine's body. She only lives for about 3 minutes, and after, she is disgusted by herself and commits suicide. This aspect seemed to be added so that audiences wouldn't feel bad for Frankenstein after the creature killed Elizabeth. It is easy for audiences to feel sad for someone who lost a spouse, but once we see how happy she is, we realize that this is Frankenstein's doing and the blame shifts back to Frankenstein. The themes of this film can be seen as facing the consequences of our actions, nature versus nurture, the value of human life, and the cost of knowledge. Next, we have a musical from 2002. The story is actually more similar to the novel than I expected. It has no narrator, but still takes place in 19th century Switzerland. Frankenstein calls himself God and the modern Prometheus. This version of Frankenstein is definitely prideful, but to his credit, he loves Elizabeth. Some aspects of the musical seem to be more like a love story and less like a horror. The creature is intellectual and eloquent. He does not look like what the creature would look like, but it is understandable since it is a musical with less access and resources to cosmetics. The musical ends differently from the novel. Frankenstein searches for the creature to seek forgiveness and not revenge. This is not seen in many adaptations. There is definitely a theme of gender and gender roles, which is not easily seen in the novel. Elizabeth speaks up for herself and women, which Elizabeth does not do in the novel. Other themes that can be seen are facing the unintended consequences of your actions, love, and forgiveness. Next, we have the Frankenstein from 2015, and I think this is the most different, but that is also because it takes place in present day Los Angeles. The creature is actually the main character and given the name Adam. He is the narrator who is telling the story. He was the product of experimentation that was supposed to be disposed of, but he was too strong. And Adam is too strong for his own good. He accidentally kills many people just because he does not know how to control himself. Although he lives many years, he never gains the ability to speak more than 3 words in a sentence. Frankenstein is symbolized by the two doctors named Victor and Catherine. They create him, and he is perfect when he is created, but he starts to malfunction. He starts to become disfigured and deformed. There is no love interest character, but rather mother character, which is Catherine. The ending is the most different. Adam finds him creating another one of him, and he destroys it. Victor accidentally kills Catherine, and he escapes. There is clearly no love between the two of them. Adam takes the dead Catherine and throws her onto a funeral pyre along with himself, which is similar to the novel. Some of the main themes in this adaptation are the danger of taking the role of God, the effect of child abandonment, the effect of human experimentation, and the injustice of the justice system. The last adaptation is Victor Frankenstein from 2015. It takes place from 1860s London, and Igor is the narrator. This is the only adaptation I watched that included Igor, who's not in the novel. It is assumed that Igor was added to Frankenstein because sidekicks and assistants are seen in many horror films. Frankenstein in the film is portrayed as a psychotic mad genius. He gives the meaning to mad scientist. He is extremely temperamental and drinks often. His reasoning to creating the monster is a little more noble than it is prideful. His brother Henry died in a blizzard while he was with him, and although pride does seem to play a role in it, he wants to stop death from happening. The creature's only in the last few minutes of the movie. He is less monster like and more giant like. There is no Elizabeth in the movie, but there is a Lorelei. She is the love interest of Igor. The film ends with Frankenstein and Igor killing the creature, and then they split up and live their lives. Igor lives happily with Lorelei, and it alludes to that Frankenstein is studying about where he went wrong in the creature. I think Lorelei was included because the writers wanted a successful love story, but knew it couldn't be with Frankenstein, so it couldn't be Elizabeth. The themes of the film can be seen as the danger of dwelling on the past, religion versus science, and the danger of taking the role of God. One aspect that I wish were more universal in the adaptation is the inclusion of Captain Walton. I think that this storyline is one of the most essential. The entire reason why Frankenstein tells this story is because he sees himself in the captain and he wants to save the captain from the fate that he has encountered. It is only after the creature appears where the captain decides to go home and not risk the lives of himself and the crew in order to explore and push the boundaries of knowledge. You cannot look at Frankenstein without looking at the cliches included. Frankenstein has a number of cliches that may or may not have happened in the novel. Some of the cliches include a fire going off that destroys something, lightning powering the machine, the creature being mute, the creature walking in a zombie fashion, Igor, a mob with pitchforks going after the creature, and Frankenstein saying it's alive. The only one of those that happened in the novel is the fire. The rest of them were added later and just being used in other adaptations. No matter which adaptation of Frankenstein is your favorite, it is undeniable that one of the main themes are danger of experimenting too far and facing the unintended consequences of your actions. Frankenstein was written during the Industrial Revolution as a cautionary tale to what happens when someone goes down an immoral and unethical route when experimenting. Some of the adaptations hit this theme harder than others, and I think there is an easy explanation for that. In the 1957 and 1994 adaptation, I think that it did not hit this theme as hard because technological advances were not discouraged. They were about to hit the 21st century, and technology was on the up and up, and most people were excited about that. Compared to 2015, human and animal experimentation started to become out in the open because consumers did not know what was happening behind the lab door. I think how hard the theme was hit is dependent on what the writer and director were trying to say and make commentary on. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning about one of the world's most popular monsters.
Ooh, I'm your Frankenstein.